she says it's clunking going into gear. So we're going to do what we call a power brake, where we are going to rock the motor back and forth to see if the motor mounts are in good condition. Okay, so parking brake needs to be really set hard. The right wheel, we have chucked with 2 chucks front and rear, so the wheels are chucked. And so you're going to smash the brake pedal, and then you're going to go back and forth between reverse drive, reverse slow, and try to get this motor to rock to see if it's making a clunking sound. So reverse, and you just slightly give it throttle, and you're feeling for that motor, and the reverse seems fine. Now I'm going to go to drive, and sometimes you'll feel a clunk, and that would be a motor mount. And then I can just give it a little bit of gas and a little harshness. Go back to reverse, a little bit of gas, and now I'm going to drop it down to drive 1. Feel a little movement there, but I'm going to have to visually inspect the motor mounts to see if the mounts are worn. So go back to reverse, try it again, go back to drive. So we're going to put the car up in the air, and we're going to check the motor mounts as another person does this for me. So there are 2 top mounts on this motor. So we have a transverse motor, front wheel drive, so the transmission or transaxle's here, the engine's here. We have a front motor mount right here that connects to the bolt here. You can see the big bolt. So and it connects to the front of the motor. We have another motor mount or transmission mount. You can see it right down there, that one bolt that's down deep right there. That's part of the transmission mount on top. Those are 2 mounts on top we're going to check. So let's see if the motor rocks. Go ahead. And it's good to check it from the side. See it rocking. Go the other way. So that's reverse. Okay. Now go to drive. Still a clunk. Okay, so we're going to check the motor mounts underneath now. Go ahead. So this is the rear mount on the transaxle. Go the other way. Oh yeah, it's separating quite a bit. Go the other way. Low. All right, so that's the driver's wheel. And this is the rear mount to the engine. Okay, so we already diagnosed the motor mount on this vehicle. We got the parts now, but before I ever pull anything apart, I'm going to make sure that that part matches up to what I want to replace. Because the worst thing you want to do is take spend the time to take something apart, and then you got the wrong part. It ends up saving you time in the long run. So check your parts. A lot of these newer cars, they put this plastic cowling underneath it to direct the airflow, but also to keep the debris from the road from coming up and contaminating the engine and stuff. They can be very difficult to take off sometimes, and also they break a lot. You'll see cars go down the road with these plastic covers broken. You want to make sure when you take these off, you put them back on. See, this is a missing bolt right here. I'm to try to replace that bolt. This one, someone put a washer on it, so this has been off before. This one's starting to crack and split. So A lot of cars, as they age, this plastic becomes a throwaway item because it's just not cost efficient to replace them. There we go. One more bolt. There we go. All right. Oh, this is the motor mount or transaxle mount. Ford calls it a rear lower strut. I disagree with that terminology. It's a mount, not a strut, but that's what they call it. So because they call it a strut, it was really hard to identify which mount we needed at the parts store, because unless we looked up a strut, this didn't show up. So we were looking up a mount. So just a FYI on terminology. So we're going to go ahead and support the transaxle. Right here is a good place, and we're going to use a pull jack on this, okay? And I recommend using a piece of wood. So we're going to take a actual mount or strut off the transaxle, and it also supports the engine. So here's the engine, here's the transaxle, and we have to support the transaxle, and we might even have to raise it a little bit. So I always use a block of wood to protect that transaxle, and you don't want to lift it right now. All I want to do, and come over here, you'll see. You'll see it move inside. All I want to do is take the pressure off of the two bolts right here. So if you saw it, the rubber, as soon as the rubber starts to move a little bit, I'm good. I'm going to use my 3/8 impact gun. Okay, it has a 3/8 drive, and then a 3/8 drive deep 15mm socket. You know, technically it should be a black socket because it's an impact gun. Chrome sockets really aren't for that, but we're at a school and limited resources, so okay. This is kind of nice. It gives the back nut, I don't have to use a wrench to hold it. It has this little bracket here, but these brackets, if you have your hand there, could actually damage your hand, so you got to be really careful. This one has a nut welded to the frame. So my caution with the nut when it's welded to the frame is if you cross thread this, it becomes really difficult to repair it. You actually have to cut this off with a die grinder and use a regular nut. So we don't want to take a chance of damaging that thread. So when we start this bolt, we're going to make sure that the threads are good on it, for one. And the other thing is we're going to make sure we turn it 3 to 5 turns. When we go in, we're going to turn it 3 to 5 turns. Now what's interesting is this bolt doesn't have any Loctite. This bolt has Loctite on it. So that's that blue Loctite, and that is the one that goes into the bolt that's welded. So the Loctite has a potential of causing problems with cross threading or damaging the thread. So we want to clean that up, put some new Loctite on it. Inside is starting to weaken. You can see the rubber starting to dissipate. It's not completely bad, but the driver's a real sensitive driver, and she knows it's going, so we're changing it. Okay, we're ready to go back in with this mount or strut. I'm going to put this in. I'm going to start the right bolt inside. This is the one that had the Loctite on it, and I'm going to make sure I get that threaded into this welded nut pretty darn good. Like, I go as far as I can by hand, because I just don't want to take a chance of damaging that nut. And you can see it starting to come through. We're good. And I'm going to put this up here. Now this hole is not aligning, so that's when we need to use a pry bar, and we actually need to try to get this transaxle to move a little bit. There we go. You can see the whole transaxle move. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Don't want to try to force anything, because forcing things is what gets you in trouble with your threads and damaging the nuts and stuff. So, all right, we're good. Get my impact gun. And I'm just going to tighten that up. I'm going to be very careful of this so it doesn't cut my hand. Oops, wrong way. Stop. All right, so put the 15 on the bolt and make sure you don't have your hand anywhere near the. There you go. Perfect. And then now I can take my pull jack out. So you can see why all you want to do with the pull jack is you want to hold it. You don't want to lift it per se. And I still had to move the mount back and forth as I did this. So we're done with the pull jack and with the mount. Now we just got to put the plastic back up. Okay, so we're putting the cover up. A lot of these covers have these little hooks, so that way you could start one end and let it hang, and then so it's attached at that end, so it gives me some leverage to start these bolts. And like I say, start everything by hand, because you don't want to damage this, because that's when you end up getting the customer come back and they say, oh, I hear a noise, a dragging noise, and you know, they somehow, some way, what you did here came off and it hit the road, and now you're buying this whole piece for them. So, you know, it's one of those pieces that don't really serve a lot of purpose in the car, but you gotta make sure you put it back the way it was. All right, we good? Okay, so remember I said there was a missing bolt? So, you know, if you can make things better, make them better. I went and found a bolt that works. So now this is going to be even better than it was, and that wasn't part of the repair that I was assigned to. And these aren't, you notice I'm not doing these real hard. These aren't really tight. For a rookie mechanic, I would recommend torquing these by hand, not with an impact gun. But I know how to throttle the trigger, so that way it lowers the pressure. A lot of people don't realize that these guns are adjustable too. So you could adjust the torque by turning this knob. I had this all the way down to the lowest position. But you'll see there's a little gauge right here. The more you turn it this way, so the more you turn the knob this way, the more torque you get on the gun. Now we are going to do the upper right transaxle mount. So it's located right underneath the battery. The first thing we got to do is get a floor jack. We got to support our engine underneath our transaxle. So I'm just going to go and just till it hits it right there. Okay, you don't need to jack it up. I have the car up in the air because there wasn't enough room for the floor jack to go underneath. Okay, so you have to support the transaxle assembly to take the mount off. So I'm going to have to remove the battery tray, and I should have access to that mount. That wasn't a difficult terminal to get off. I actually had to take a screwdriver, get it underneath there, and pop it off. It has a lot of grooves on the terminal, so I'm going to clean those up when I take this, put this back together. It was locked onto these grooves right here, and that made it difficult. So now we're going to do the positive cable. So that's how it should have been to remove it. So you could see the difference of the terminal. There's the positive, nice and smooth right here. And then here's the negative, deep grooves, especially on this side. So we're going to clean those up. The battery is loose a little bit, so I'm not happy. I have not loosened this clamp, so somebody replaced this battery before. Alright, upon further inspection, I couldn't get this to loosen up, so I just yanked the battery out. They cross-threaded the bolt into the nut that's underneath here, so we're going to have to cut this bolt and maybe install a new nut or something. We'll figure it out once we remove the whole tray. Alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3, and that tray comes right out. Now, interesting, there is a little bit of fluid in there. I'm assuming that it's battery acid, so I'm going to be very careful. Okay, I got the tray out. I was talking about that fluid. I'm assuming that it's battery acid because my hand's feeling a little warm right now. I would never want to touch my eyes or anywhere. It's like it will spread, so I need to wash my hands. But for the moment of truth, we're going to take a little baking soda, okay, and we're going to sprinkle it in there. And you can see this is definitely boiling battery acid. So now I need to check the battery to see if the battery is cracked, because this is what was loose, and that hold down is loose because that bolt nut right there will not come loose. So I'm going to give it a shot with bolt penetrant. But first off, I need to clean this this battery acid. So I'm going to take just a bunch of baking soda. I'm going to coat this whole thing, and you can see it's neutralizing immediately. And then I'm going to take it to the sink and give it a bath. Okay, we're at the sink now. I dusted my hand with baking soda. That kind of helped. I still need to rinse with plenty of water. So we're ready. Oh, look at that. You can see the bubbles. You can hear it. Sounds like Coke. This thing is loaded with battery acid. Bad stuff. Alright, so I put the rest of the battery up on the cart right here so I can check underneath. And I don't see any cracks. This is where the clamp goes, so I don't see anything leaking. So whoever did the battery did not do a good job getting rid of everything. Since we know it was sitting, since we know the battery was sitting in battery acid, I just dusted it all down with some baking soda. And then we're going to clean that terminal up right now using a battery terminal scrubber. And I like usually trying to walk these around to clean that up. I might have to take a file a little bit for the harder edges, but this should work. Yeah, that cleaned it up. Let's see. Yeah, this side right here, I'm going to take a hard file too. So here's our hard file, and I cleaned up pretty easily. So just went around it slightly, got those little burrs that were making it stick onto the terminal. Alright, looking at this transaxle mount right here, we have one big bolt that goes all the way through. I'm not going to have enough clearance to take that out. So I'm going to probably remove the air filter. Alright, I disconnected the PCV breather hose, loosened the hose clamp, did the clips for the air cleaner because I'm going to have to remove this after all. Okay, so I'm going to remove this air cleaner out. Oh, we got one more hose up here. There we go. Get our air filter out. Not too bad. And then this should just pop right out. Doesn't look like there's any bolts holding it in. There we go. air cleaner housing completely so we get a better access. Alright, so now looking at this, we have some clearance issues. It's going to be quite difficult. The bracket that comes with the motor mount or transaxle mount is this bracket, not the one that connects to the transaxle. Okay, we got an 18 bolt that goes all the way through to this side, so make sure the gun's going the right way. And I don't want to drop that, so I'm going to stop recording and back it out so I can catch that nut before it falls off. We have that bolt completely loosened. Now I'm going to loosen all the bolts and remove them for the transaxle. The motor might shift a little bit. Okay, the shift assembly for the shift cable for the transaxle goes right over the mount, as you can see. So I'm going to remove the 2 mounting bracket bolts on the transmission shifter assembly, so that way I can move this cable out of the way and I don't have to worry about damaging it. Now I get at this bolt right here that was kind of fighting me earlier. Just felt the whole transaxle move when I did that. That was the last bolt, and it's kind of a cool little bolt, and it's a wedge, has a wedge head on it, so it centers the transaxle properly in the engine compartment. Transaxle upper mounts can be tricky because of these frame bolts. I don't want to remove my fuse box, so I'm going to use a snap-on 13 millimeter swivel impact socket, and I can get access to that bolt using this socket. Okay, look, you can't even see where the bolt is, but I'm able to get that socket on there with the extension going around the fuse box, and I'm just put my 3/8 impact gun on there. Okay, so a good rule of thumb when you have bolts that are difficult, and you have easy bolts, save the easy bolts last. I know this one's easy right here, and this one's going to be a little more challenging down here, so I'm going to do that one next. The last bolt will always be my easiest bolt to take off, and then my first bolt to start. Because those bottom bolts are real hard to get at access wise, so I switched from a 3/8 impact gun to an air ratchet, and I should be able to get these on there now. There we go. There's one. And here's my last bolt right here. Should be able to get at that. There we go. So now this motor mount should come right out. Okay, so I don't want to lose those bolts that were hard to get at, so I'm going to pull those out. There we go. And there's our mount, and you can see it's broken. Good idea to replace this. They did mounts at a shop she took it to. My guess is they didn't want to change this because it was too difficult for them. Look at this. Completely came apart without any force. This center section was just sitting in there. You could see how it's completely ripped from the inside of that mount. She's going to be very happy with this repair after doing this mount and the strut lower mount and the back of the motor. Before I pulled this mount out, I verified as much as I could that it was the same one as the one I was going to install, but there was no guarantee. I was kind of going by this bracket because I couldn't see all these bolts. These bolts were all hidden, but it looks like it's a complete match. And then I'm going to check where it bolts to the side, complete match. So this will bolt right in, but you don't want to waste your time where you have the wrong part or if something's different about it. You want to know ahead of time, so we're good. The bolts that go underneath this fuse panel is these two bolts, so I'm going to stick these in, and without having these come out, I'm going to try to fish this inside my engine compartment, so that way they're already installed and I don't have to get my fingers into a tight area. Okay, so you got to be real careful because we don't want to drop those, and it also serves the purpose of lining up our mount. There we go. Now we're going to do the horizontal bolts into the frame. Alright, so I have all the bolts started by hand on both sides. So now I'm going to use my air ratchet, make sure I'm going right direction. Start with my easy bolt right here. There we go. Now I'm going to switch to my 3/8 gun with a 5-inch extension and the swivel socket. And let's get these bolts right underneath the fuse box. Make sure my gun's going the right way. Get a good angle on it. Perfect. So it can't be emphasized enough. Without these cool tools and this swivel socket, I would have had to remove this entire fuse box out of the way, and that could have been challenging because you're dealing with wiring harnesses, the mounts. Whenever you have this fuse box in the way, try to avoid having to remove it because it can be very challenging. So this has to go underneath that shift linkage that we talked about earlier in the video. And what's nice about these brackets is they're lined up with studs, so that helps quite considerably. The one problem is your motor sometimes moves on you, so we might have to rock this motor back and forth to get it to drop in. My bolt hole is not lining up properly on the large mount, so I'm going to go ahead and jack up my engine a little bit more. That lines up. Let's see. Almost. I think I'll have to use a pry bar now. Right, we got our bolt through and our nut on the other side. We jacked up the motor a little bit so we can get our bolts onto the studs right here. One, and that one's still kind of high, but we could do these two over here. And if we tighten those two up about halfway, that should draw in enough to start these. And you can see the engine move when I do that. And it's very possible I might have to move things around. It looks like I will have to. Okay, so I'm going to get the pry bar and see if I get that to pop into place. One. Two. Three. Now we got our shift linkage we're going to attach. A simple word on the shift linkage. This is the shifter assembly right here, because I did not mess with the adjustment up here at the top. You can see where my fingers are at, and I did not separate the cable from the bracket right here. I only did these 2 bolts. We don't have to worry about adjusting our shift linkage. If you disconnected it here or up where the adjustment's at, then I need to adjust this cable. We're ready to do the large 18 bolt that goes all the way through the mount. What I want to do first though is I want to lower my engine, because I don't want to put strain on anything. I want it to hang, and then I just tighten this bolt. Yeah, so we're done with the jack. The motor mount is completely, or transaxle mount is completely installed now. What's left is the air cleaner and the battery. Alright, so we're going to install the air cleaner housing. It does have to go inside here properly, so keep that in mind. So I'm going to verify how it fits inside here. So you see there's a hole right here that needs to be fitted right over this air intake bezel, so that needs to be installed properly. So get that over. I think we got it, and then it should just pop right into place. Now, thought on this air cleaner assembly, there's little tabs right here that we need to get underneath and lock. There's 3 of them. Okay, so those 3 tabs need to be completely locked inside, so we could pivot this down, and we need to slip this over a throttle body right here. Okay, perfect. There's a couple of hoses that we need to hook up right here, and oh, see, we popped out of that clip right there. So that's why air cleaners, they can be challenging sometimes. There we go. Okay, and let's go ahead and clip these clips so it doesn't come apart on us again. Two hoses that need to go in. This is our PCV breather hose, and then this is just a bypass hose. A good rule of thumb is to use a little bit of spit and lubricate inside these hoses or around the fittings, and that will make it slide in a lot easier. Too many students forget these little hose clamps. These are important so there's no air leaks. If you have an air leak anywhere from the throttle body to our MAF sensor, it's cut anywhere in here, it would cause an engine performance problem. Whether you left this hose loose, this hose clamp loose, you would get a really bad airflow reading, and that would lead to a lack of performance, lack of power, all kinds of problems, bucking, surging. So you can't have any leaks between the sensor, which is the mass airflow sensor, also called a MAF, and the throttle body. No air leaks in this area. Alright, we cleaned our battery tray out of the battery acid, so it's all clean. And I sprayed this with bolt penetrant, and now we could take that loose. Remember, that wasn't freeing up because it was completely corroded with battery acid. Looks like I still have some more cleaning to do on this, so I want to clean this up, and then we're going to install our battery. Okay, so now for the moment of truth, we are in reverse, so we're going to give it a little gas with the brake pedal smashed, and then we're going to go to drive. See if we can feel a bump, and I don't. Go back to reverse. Go back to drive. I'm happy. Alright, so we're going to power brake this car right now and see if the rocking action is better than it was. Middle throttle. Okay, that's reverse. That's nice and tight. Okay, now go drive. A little more throttle. Go reverse now. Okay. Go down to low and do it. I think it's a lot better. Yeah, we're good. We just verified that it's corrected.